Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm today's host, Coleman Hodges. Joining us today, head coach of the NC State Wolfpack and head coach this past summer at the 2025 World Championships in Singapore. He was the head coach for USA Swimming. He led them to, a bunch of gold medals. You guys won the medal table. It was an awesome showing in Singapore, despite facing a ton of illness. We're going to get into all that. We're going to get into the Wolfpack. We're talking to Braden Holloway today. Braden, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate being on.
This episode of the SwimSwam podcast is sponsored by Commit Swimming, SwimSwam's exclusive team management software partner. Since 2015, Commit has been providing coaches with swimming's leading workout management software. And now, Commit has team management software too. Commit wants to help you make the switch from Team Unify to a simpler, more powerful solution. Their onboarding and customer service team will walk you through every step of the way. Check them out at commitswimming.com to book your demo today. That's COMMIT swimming.com. You got back, you got to have a little bit of downtime after Worlds, and now you're just kind of getting into things a little bit with NC State. How have the last couple of weeks been, just being back in Raleigh and getting into this college season?
Yeah, I feel like after I get a little bit of a break, being with the family and my kids are all over the place with their ages, so there's a lot going on, so it keeps me pretty busy. It's a good way to clear my mind. But I think going into every college season, I get excited because it's a new team. In the summer, obviously you have the freshmen that come in, then you have a couple of internationals. Usually we have one or two or three that come in, and then you have some of the ones that had really big summers, at Worlds or WUGs, and but then I think the one thing I'm also excited about is some of the ones that maybe weren't at one of those meets that took a big step forward, and just to see where they are to start the season. It's our first year without Coach Mark with us, so I miss a little bit of his funny quotes that he likes to say. But we have a new coach with a lot of energy here. We start our seasons a little bit slower. We have a recruiting weekend this weekend, which I've never had one in August, but our first football game is against ECU, and last year we played them in a bowl game and they beat us, and it was like 3 fights during the game. I mean, we were like, this could be pretty fun. It's our first game, so we decided to do an early trip. So that kind of got us going a little bit. We're just kind of ready for a new adventure, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a good way to start the season. We'll get into a little bit of that at the end of the podcast. But you mentioned just clearing your mind, kind of resetting again. I feel like August is kind of the time where everyone takes vacation, resets, and then like new beginnings. So, during that time coming off of Singapore, how do you feel like it went for you and for the team overall? Just having some being removed from it.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited about the opportunity. I've gotten along really well with Greg during my career. When I started doing these trips, he's been a very big mentor of mine. He's been very helpful. So I was excited to work with him. I knew kind of going into it, the women's team was going to be strong. Lots of veterans, lots of instant gold medal opportunities. And then, I think for us, we wanted to look at it more of where do our men get going leading into 28? A lot of our staff talks in talks with Greg was, 2028 is the home Olympics, and it is the priority, of this quad, of course. So we got a lot of young guys, and on paper, probably a lot of young guys that are going to be really ready to go in 2028. So we were kind of curious to kind of see how they would mature, because many of them were on their first trip, first worlds. Some of them were on their first trip, period. And and obviously we had a couple older guys on their first trip. I kind of told the group, Santo, he's traveled the world to make this team. But
right.
So we knew it would be a challenge. Obviously the goal was to still come out on top with the gold medals, and the overall medal count. That was the goal. And, through a lot of adversity, obviously it was pretty challenging. I've never had a trip like that. The Olympics, we had some COVID cases creeping up in there, and probably some other COVID cases that no one really spoke about, but there was something wrong with a couple of kids. Some of the other trips, it was just an adversity that everybody dealt with, bus travel, pool temperatures, whatever. This one was definitely emotionally the most challenging for me. For our staff, I can tell you, I don't think the doctors slept. Like I don't think they slept. I mean, it was every day the group chat at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. was more situations. So for me, I look back and I think the staff worked well together. That's one thing I look at is we had a few new coaches on staff that was their first trip, and I think they did fantastic. Your first trip, and then you're given, 95% of the team was dealing with something, and it was their first trip as coaches. So I think they handled it very well, and so overall very challenging. But in a way, it's like, okay, some of these kids that we're going to really lean on in 2028, and especially some of the younger guys that had to go through some stuff, it's just going to make them stronger. I think it's going to make them more prepared to be able to swim fast no matter what, especially when they're in a better position to do even better, 3 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of, like you said, just so much youth on this team, both in the coaching staff and with the athletes. So I am really curious. And again, Greg Meehan's first big meet as national team director, and you've been a head coach for past teams. You've been on staff for past teams on Olympics and Worlds. I'm just curious, you mentioned kind of some of the meetings you guys had as staffs, and just how Greg set the tone as national team director, and obviously you having a rapport with him, but also just him being a coach, how he set the tone, even in training camp or after trials, when you guys were preparing and looking at this team, and how that might have been different from past teams or past experiences.
Yeah, our first Zoom call obviously was after the meet. I want to say, Greg, we kind of let it go a couple days, and then we had a Zoom call, and I think we had 3 with the entire team. And you could tell from the get-go his strengths, and that is when he walks into a room and he grabs your attention, you're ready to listen. And a lot of the times we would have meetings even during training camp. He would ask me to kind of go after him, and I'm like, dude, I'm kind of motivated to swim myself, Greg. I don't think I need to say a whole lot. And I remember when I first kind of came on the scene a little bit with some of this stuff was when Frank was there, and so he was a past coach, right? And so I think it gives you so many more aspects of things to look out for behind the scenes that coach, that Greg, had been through. Any kind of adversity through a travel meet. So I think he was able to cover a lot of things early in regards to the training camp and the meet itself. Talking a little bit more about the reason, like, here's the purpose of our training camp. Here's our goals as a training camp. And then I think the biggest thing that I think the athletes probably took away from Greg and watching him was just motivating the team. and reminding them like, hey, we may have a really young men's team, or we may have a women's team that's had a little bit more success on the higher level than the men. Regardless, here are the goals that we want to achieve, and here's what we're going to work towards. And he did a really good job of talking backwards from LA 28. And because that needs to be a pretty big focal point for USA, is working backwards and starting to lay the foundations for a home Olympics. And so he grabbed your attention at all times. And I think that was really fun to see.
I think that's fascinating. That, I mean, certainly we've talked a lot about LA 2028, and it, we almost forgot about Paris right after it happened, because especially, in the US, we have this big Olympics coming up. But I think that's fascinating that even in preparation for this World Championships, the national team director is still like, this is what we're looking at. 2028 LA is the goal. And that's not something I necessarily expected to hear, but it makes sense when you look at it from that perspective of, this is a stepping stone, and especially with that young team.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about training camp. Obviously that's where some of this illness started, but also, like you said, there were certain goals for this training camp, and I'm guessing probably some good parts or some encouraging parts about it as well.
Yeah, training camp was a little different. One thing that when we got together as a staff and having some fresh ideas from some of the new staff members, but also having some of the guys who have been on staff before, especially with like Ray or Ron, for example. We had a lot of good chemistry on trying to build a really good team environment. A couple of the, starting a lot of our practices together. For example, when we did, relay start work and we're starting to prep, just seeing different people swim in because their strokes are very different. We had the entire team involved. So it wasn't just the free relay is going to go over here. We had the entire team there, also working on starts, doing a couple, just being around them. So it was always together. One cool thing, and Herbie did a lot of work with this, which was pretty cool. You could, on everyone's plans, and Kim Williams she was about as organized as you can get. I mean, we were working on something in the airport, and we were in Seoul, Korea, working our way there, and I was working on lane assignments, because one of the big things that we wanted to make sure we had one less pool than when we were doing our training camp for Paris. We only had 150 meter, so we were losing
one
an
entire less pool.
Right, so we had to be organized about who needs long course, who needs short course, who needs towers, because we only had 4 buckets.
Okay,
and so we tried to prioritize. All right, okay, who's suiting up when, and they take the priority and work backwards. And so coaches had to be able to move things around. And I'm like working on the first lane assignment situation of like, okay, we're going to start together here. Okay, Ron, you're going to go with these 2 lanes, and Ray, you got these 2 lanes or whatever. And then I look over at Kim, and she's got like this spreadsheet. I was going to say it was color coordinated to make it sound better, but it was just black and white. But
yeah,
I was like, hey, let's just use that, and we can just update that. So the stat, she did a really good job of making sure that we always knew where everyone was going. So it allowed us to really calm our, because we had the pool for 3 hours. So if you didn't need to be there and like try and get lane space, you could come whenever you wanted, unless it was like a team formulated workout. But and if you wanted to split your group and you knew you had 2 lanes and you want to specialize, I want to go 2 for an hour and a half, 2 for an hour and a half. Because of our planning, it allowed us to do that. So that was a really big, huge part of the trip that USA hopefully keeps moving forward with, because it just allowed coaches to be less stressed about what lanes do they have. I remember watching one practice in Paris, and Dave Durden had to like do like a 1 short course lane, 1 long course lane, and he was like, they were like in and out. And I think we kind of took that part away. But we got to a point where we noticed everyone was kind of suiting up fast. towards the end on this one day, and then the other group was the next day. So what we did is we created a mock meet, and the people that weren't going the first day, they came, they lined up lawn chairs, they were cheering, and people were doing broken swims, suited sets. I mean, I remember, I don't know if it was Henry McFadden had a pretty big set that went for like 30 minutes, and then the very next day it was the other group. So we made a heat sheet, and Herbie made a logo. Herbie loves Chat GPTI or whatever it is. He was making pictures and logos. And so we actually started, when we started doing some really good race work, the whole team was involved. And I think those were some really good aspects of the training camp.
Yeah. Ooh, that sounds fun.
It was fun.
Listen, next time you guys have a mini mock 2-day meet, just drop me a line. You've got my number. Say, hey, SwimSwam, we're having a training camp swim meet. Come on by.
Well, at first we got nervous because the first 2 days it just rained.
Oh yeah.
and we were like, couple of the coaches were just, I'm just gonna, no poncho, no umbrella, I'm just gonna get wet.
Yeah.
And one of the workers there was like, it's monsoon season. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I hope it's not every day is going to be like this. The weather ended up clearing up, and then it would just rain from time to time.
Okay.
But yeah.
Nice. I remember. Yes. Now that you say that, I remember seeing a video on social media of I think it was Greg, just like standing outside in the rain in a poncho, but just completely drenched anyway.
Right.
Dang. But yeah, so it cleared up. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds like an awesome situation and an awesome, like, cool 2-day little mini mock meet. But then, of course, on the flip side of this, I'm guessing that was about the time when people started getting sick. And as a staff and as a whole team, how did you deal with that? Especially, I can't even imagine having, puking, getting sick for 48, 72 hours and then getting, in a completely foreign land and then getting on a plane and going to another completely foreign land and be like, okay, do the best you can, do the best meet of your year.
Yeah. When it started, we thought it was like a food poisoning situation, because there was a few people.
Yeah.
And it hit them hard. Right. And then we're like, okay, that really stinks. And I said earlier, I'm not going to mention names, but there was a few where, okay, 2 days, I haven't seen that person.
Yeah.
Then when the early text started coming through, hey, we got a few more. Then we got to travel day. And I mean, we were having a meeting late at night based on where people were, trying to figure out what's going on. People were not able to even hydrate.
Yeah.
And, we ended, it's okay to stay back, right? We had 5 days when we got over to Singapore. So anybody not racing early, we can keep them back. Obviously some of the kids were like, get me out of here. Right. So, some, there was no way they were going to travel. They couldn't even like stand up. And then some were like, I'll deal with a flight, because it was like a 2-hour flight.
Yeah.
They were like, a few of them that were like, I want to deal with it. I want to get out of here. Get me to Singapore. Cause a lot of them have been to Singapore because of the camp.
Yeah.
The camp before Worlds in 23. And so they were comfortable with Singapore because it's just a really great place. And so we ended up having to make a decision where we left a doctor back. We left a nutritionist back. We left a coach back. We left, Kim Williams stayed back. And then we had a crew stay back because the numbers were creeping up. And the rest of us got to Singapore, and we had like a day where we didn't have any new cases. I'm like, okay. And then next thing you know, we get closer to the meet. And I mean, Coleman, we had people that I didn't think were going to swim day one, they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
We had a few kids that were like, I don't care how bad I am. This is my swim. I want to do it. And it doesn't matter, and a lot of the situations we kind of left it to them. in that scenario, obviously ones that had multiple swims, we had to make some pretty hard decisions. So it was, and not really knowing, because we were, this symptom was showing this symptom was showing this, and so this symptom was this person's going through this, and this person's kind of different but going through this. I think the big thing is how much it depleted them, even when they came back. And a lot of them where you could see it deplete them from just total energy or total strength. And some of them, it was like they had zero. It's like they lost all endurance. They and then some, even the meet kind of showed it, like they were able to do something and be okay, but they couldn't go back to the well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it drained them, and a lot of our semifinal swims were not good. They were okay in the prelims, and then they had a hard time coming back. And then some of them who didn't have a swim the next morning were better for the finals. So it was very challenging, and the other thing was that we had a few relays where we didn't have options. Like, this is what we got. We were going to do these two people in prelims, but they're not available.
Right.
And so a few of our relays, that's what it was. And we had a few people that had to be on call, and be ready to go on a relay right on day one. And even not everybody on those relays were healthy. So it was very challenging.
I can imagine. I mean, I'm going to ask you about a couple specific swimmers, just because you said, you talked generally, and even those first couple days we saw things like, Tori Husk and Gretchen Walsh, where Tori's freestyle looked on, but she's not swimming the 100 fly. And then, like, conversely, Gretchen's butterfly looked amazing, but she wasn't on she opted out for a free event or for a relay. Yes, she didn't swim the 400 free relay on day one. Is for cases like that, was that the athletes' decisions? Was that like the coaching staff working with the athletes saying, maybe we back off here or maybe we back off there? Because it was kind of fascinating just from the outside to be like, well, it looks like they're having good swims, but it also looks like they're trying to maybe stay away from certain events or to back off.
Yeah, I mean, it was a group effort. I mean, obviously the athletes, and I have to commend the athletes. They were very truthful and very honest on how they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really big growth with some of the ones that I've been on trips before, seeing the maturity level be higher of where they truly are. A lot of our decision was, okay, if someone's at 80% and they're at this level, someone who maybe be here at 100%, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. Is it worth it? Is that going to deplete them? A lot in the case of Tori and Gretchen were more of like, they were both struggling.
Yeah.
And it was more of like our workload for those two women, and as many gold medal opportunities as they're going to have going into the meet over the course of 8 days. If we're racing one of them, are we going to get what we need out of them? And if you do, and like say they're fourth, and then in our mind, we should have never swum them if they're going to be fourth, right? Because of the power that they have. So early on, we were pretty worried a little bit about just overdoing the first 2 days on seeing how they were doing, and just burying ourselves with two women that are slated to swim a lot. And actually, they swam less than what they were supposed to, because it was really hard on them. Mm-hmm. When you thought, one of them would work on their way back, I mean, behind the scenes, how much that race zapped them, or truthfully, like, they couldn't hold anything down. I mean, it was a mess. And I was like, okay, well, we can't put her in it. She can't even hold water down, right? And so it was hard making those decisions and talking them through it, but we really tried to put, number one, their health first. And number two, where are our medal chances and how do we best capitalize those medal chances? Mm-hmm. And so we had to make some pretty tough decisions early on. And then later we went back to some of them to see where they were, and they still weren't ready to go. Right. And so, they battled, and I have to hand it to them. They fought back, because we had at the end of the trip, I'll tell you this, we had one young man lose 28 pounds, 28, or no, I think it was 23 pounds. We had people 23 pounds on the weight, 8 pounds for some of the women, 15 pounds for some. It was just because they couldn't keep anything down. They couldn't get, nutrition into their system, and they were just draining themselves with the sickness that, so that was why some of the decisions were made. It was really where is their health? What is this really going to do to them right now and the next day and the next day? And it was almost basically, going in the meet, we kind of had relays kind of prepped a little bit of, okay, here's kind of where we are. Maybe there's a couple of scenarios here. But we had to totally crumple it up and throw it out the window.
Yeah. No, it's, there were several cases where, again, it's just as an outsider, we're looking and not even scratching our heads at that point, because we're like, this must be how they're affecting them, and it must be affecting certain athletes. But it's like, again, in the case of I guess specifically Tori Husk, it's like we've seen her the last 2 or 3 years at international meets be incredibly consistent, and also just go best time after best time, or incredible relay swim after relay swim. And to see her have the trials that she did, and then go to this meet and have some sensational swims, an individual medal, relay medals, world records, but then also have some swims that it's like, it looks like she's really struggling, because like something must be up, right?
You're right.
Yeah. And so again, as going back to your young, or maybe combination young and experienced coaching staff, how do you see the staff handling this when you actually get to Singapore? And also, how do you see your role just as head coach, again, with Greg being there, being the motivator and the planner and the organizer that he is? How did your role as the head coach end up manifesting itself?
Yeah, obviously we found ourselves as a staff communicating a good bit, but it was turned into a lot of more communication on the athletes that you're working with. Where are they? What is their energy level? We had people that, they couldn't even do warm up. They couldn't do warm. They had to get out and go to the restroom, or they were so depleted they couldn't do warm up. So a lot of it was constant checking in on where the athletes are, what can we foresee where they could be in a race. Unfortunately, a lot of it was like, can we do any projections with some different kids? We were searching for men's backstroke because, Coleman, to be honest, they were all sick. We didn't have many healthy options.
So just to give an example, Keaton Jones leading off the prelims mixed medley, right? Even though he was not one of the primary 100 backstrokers.
Right. Yeah. Because the other ones were not available. Like that was it, and if we looked at the female side, we had some issues with sickness there too. So we were like, okay, if Keaton's doing okay, he can probably give us a good swim. Campbell was our only option on breaststroke at that point. Because that's why, our other breaststroker was out. So, and obviously that decision didn't work. And in hindsight, should we have got rolled with something different? Obviously. But when you're in that moment and you're looking at what's available, you just got to make the decision with what you got and hope that you're making the right one. And you know, but I think a lot of the staff's communication it was literally health check-ins more than anything else. Whereas this person, where's this person, where's this person, where's this person? So we can kind of make sure, okay, from a relay standpoint, what are we looking at? Two, where are they from their individual event? What's the best course of action? Because there were a lot of kids that we kind of said, hey, you need to be at the hotel. You need to try and eat something. And you get in the warm up, we're just depleting your energy. So it made it hard from a cheering section because they couldn't be there because of their health, a lot of them. And then from my role, it turned, I had to be as positive as I could be, and as uplifting as I could be. A lot of times in my nature, I can do that, and it's part of me. But I mean, there were times where I was faking really good, right? So just trying to keep a pulse on every coach and the group that they're overseeing, and being a pulse between the staff and Greg and the doctors was really what my role kind of turned into. At first it was, especially when we would talk about certain aspects of the trip, it was more of like gathering information and here's where, and then it was more of like, okay, this is the information we got, and here's a statement that's going to be said. And so that was kind of, I think, what my role, I mean, obviously I was coaching some kids and I was overseeing some kids directly, but that kind of seemed to be a little bit more of where my role turned into.
Sure. Yeah. And then, I mean, so for example, we talked to Reagan Smith, her podcast just came out today, but she was like, I was on my floor puking. I was crying every night. And then like when I could finally eat something, I was eating oatmeal 4 times a day. It's like I could barely eat solid foods. But then she goes on to win 4 silvers and, leads off the medley relay for gold. So I'm wondering, as you saw the meet play out, how you saw the athletes rally around this or fight through this and get through the meet with some really sensational swims, because we just, when we were discussing it at SwimSwam, it's like, if the sickness happened, 5 days before the meet, 7 days before the meet, it's like, this could be like a taper. And I know that's kind of a crass way of putting it, or just like a one-sided way of viewing it. But it's like, if they get halfway through the meet, they might start turning around and we might see some really great swims. And I think that's what happened. But how did you see the athletes get through this and maybe even rally around it inside the team?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely saw, at first, I think we kind of joked as a staff, like, all right, well, if we're going to get it, let's get it now real quick, boom, boom, boom. And then let's go.
Yeah.
And when it didn't go away, that was when we were like, ugh, like when people were getting it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of our kids that swim some of the disc events, they didn't even swim. Right. And then we had some that had to go to the hospital. But I think the ones that didn't get it as bad, and they were able to kind of bounce back, I think they kind of saw like, okay, if I can just manage myself, I've worked hard enough, I'm good enough, and my mind is strong enough, I can conquer and still give my best to USA. And like, that was Reagan, right? And Reagan represented a group of them that they were hurting, but they were fighting, and it wasn't going away. I mean, every day you would see Reagan, she was uncomfortable every single day she showed up, right? Yeah. And you could tell, but they were like, it doesn't matter. I think they got to a point where they told themselves, it does not matter. There is no next meet to be ready for till next summer, right? At Pan-Pacs, whatever. So I think they got to a point where they're like, I'm going to do whatever. I mean, we had one young man who I felt like he was on his deathbed, and he worked his way back a little bit to where, I mean, he still wasn't fast, but it was a respectable swim. And I told him, I was like, in 20 years, you're going to be more proud of that race than maybe your biggest ones because of what he worked back from. So there were some that didn't work their way back. And it was too much. And then there were some that just battled the best they could, and that's where their body was. I mean, like, in Paris, right? We relied on Bobby Fink at the 11th hour to get us to the gold medal count victory, right? I mean, that's all his body had. Like, that's all, that was it.
Yeah.
And I think the USA took pride in watching him compete, knowing that he was giving every ounce he could, because that boy was struggling, right? I mean, so,
Yeah.
And obviously he didn't talk about it, and that's what I think, they did not want to talk about it. They wanted to talk about competing. They want to talk about, but at least they did a good job of, like, especially when we were having to make decisions on relays, they're like, Braden, my body is dead as a doornail. Like, I'll if you put me there, I'll give you everything I got, but I'm just letting you know where I am, And so, I think when some kind of worked their way back and they had some good moments, I think they took pride in those moments, knowing what they've been through.
Yeah, I mean, and let's talk about a couple of those moments, specifically relay moments, because in the last 2 or 3 days of the meet, Team USA breaks 2 world records in relays, after going through this. Like, again, as a head coach, and also just as someone who saw what each of these athletes was going through at the time, how prideful was that, or how cool was that to see those things come together? And again, 2 world records, the women's medley, they had just shattered the year before with an insanely good team, and for them to come back, as well as in the mixed free relay, for both those teams to do what they did.
Yeah, I think, and I'm really glad that was the last race of the meet, right? I mean, we knew, obviously Kate was having a great meet, right? And she was able to keep herself pretty healthy, and Gretchen, fought the entire time, but even when she was fighting, it was going to be a good swim, right? And Tori working her way back, and obviously Reagan was doing, she was managing it. So we knew this could still be a really good relay. And I think, Kate's breaststroke leg kind of pushed us over that hump to get that record done, and give those ladies on flying free coming off, Reagan and Kate, they gave them that positive momentum. Like, hey, we're out front by a good bit. We can do this. And I use this message a lot, and I don't know, maybe I annoyed some of the kids, but like when you get in a race sometimes, right, and you're just racing, and your enthusiasm and your will to just win, or it takes your mind away sometimes of how your body actually is, and your mind can take you to a place, the emotion of it can take you to a place you've never been. And I think that's what happened on that relay. And the day or two before that, Jack Alexy was, I'm taking over. I'm going to be the man. Like, I'm going to, right. And so once he kind of kept going those 46s, it was like, okay, we knew between him and Patty that we would be in a really good position going in the women's freestylers. And so I think that right there, Jack gave that relay big hope, because he went out, and then Patty held his ground. And so they were able to feed off that. Right. And so I think those world records were really awesome to see.
Yeah. Just as a coach, doesn't even have to be for Team USA. Give me some perspective on Jack's 45.9 anchor. Cause
well, we always put him
coached. You've coached male sprinters for a long time. You've seen a lot of crazy stuff. I did not expect that.
Well, sometimes they're always going first, right? I mean, and for him, it's like, in the morning, we weren't messing around. Like, right. Jack, you got to go in the morning. And I told him, I said, hey, look, you may have to go for us to make this relay back.
Yeah.
And I don't know where, we had a couple people that were struggling on the relay in the morning that had been, I don't know where other teams are going to be. And then based off the mixed medley relay, I'm like, we're not playing this game. Mm-hmm. Jack, you're going in the morning. And he was like, bring it. And I was like, you may have to gun it, and run some people down.
Yeah.
Turns out he dove in and he was in the lead after like 12 and a half, right, or something. And he come up to me and goes, I thought you said I was going to have to gun it. And I was like, it worked out a little bit differently.
I said, you might have
to. I did say might, right? I think in that situation, when you have that and they're always going first, they're always swimming a strategical race. This is how I do it, right? I need to be smart the first. But sometimes, when you put them at the end, they're not thinking, right? Mm-hmm. And they go out faster, and then they're just taking that strategic, not so robotic type mentality of how they need to do it, and it's just pure emotion. And I mean that's why we didn't put Luke first in the 800 free relay, and we've gone the same type of order every time, and we don't win. We haven't won. So we met as a staff and like, look, let's really see what kind of split we can get out of Luke. Mm-hmm. Luke, whenever we put him first, it's always like his fourth one of the meet, and so it's always like his fourth best.
Yeah.
In his history, and I talked to Luke, and Luke was like, I would love to go anywhere but first. Because and so he's our fastest guy, and if we put him first, we're in the lead. But if he's going to go his fourth best swim of the meet, what can we get out of him in a different spot? So we decided, okay, if we put him second, maybe we're right behind. We're not quite out of the lead first, but maybe we put him third. It might be enough distance where we could really get the biggest split out of him. That's kind of why we put him third. I didn't want to put him. We talked about not putting him last because it might be too late. So, but that was another swim kind of like with Jack, where it's like the emotion just took over, and I mean, it was Jack swam the second fastest all-time split, right? Or third fastest, or one of them?
Second. Yeah. Second. Just Pans from last year medley is faster. Yeah. He beat Jason Lezak.
Well, and I bet you Jason's so proud of that, like, all right,
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean again, and for the men to close out the meet in that way, for everyone on that relay, given the circumstances, to put up, solid splits, and then Jack to like pull them back into medal contention. It was cool. It left a good taste in your mouth for Team USA men moving forward. Personally.
Yeah, right. That relay we had a few different options. We had some, that maybe weren't swimming quite as good. Yeah. Some that were still physically just questionable. Obviously, by that point, we kind of felt a little bit better about the backstroke situation. Mm-hmm. And because our Tommy started feeling better, and I think with Jack, it was like in the morning, I think he went fast, but he knew he didn't go all the way there because obviously he was in the lead. And so then at night, being in lane 4, I think helped because we knew everyone was going to be way better, and our relay was almost the same because we on paper, I think we were like we're like 8th or 9th. Yeah. And we can't do that, right? We gotta get it back. And so, I think that relay is just going to grow and be ready to go for these next couple summers. Mm-hmm. All the men's free relays and all the medley relays, I think are going to be really big stepping stones into the next 3 years.
Yeah. Very excited to see what's going to happen there next year in Irvine, especially on get some home soil practice for 2028. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I haven't even gotten to your athletes, and specifically your world champion, Katharine Berkoff. I mean, what a year she's had, what a pro career she's had so far. But for her to go into this meet, bronze in the 100 back 58.1, gold in the 50 back 27.08, and then to be a key contributor on the prelims relay and that medley relay that won a gold medal as well. What was it like getting to guide her through this world championships and see her put together the meet that she did?
It was fun, but a challenge. because I mean, she was just like everyone else, right? Just struggling physically, like just with it all, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, it might have helped her because it took her mind off the actual performance part, and it was more of like, I gotta be able to drink this cup of water and keep it down. So but I think for her, just winning your first world title, I think just it takes another step. Obviously she wanted to be faster, but I think everybody wanted to be faster. But I think she's getting better at managing her emotions and through the prelims and finals better. That was something that we really wanted to work on at this meet, because in Paris and prelims in the 100 back, right, she was like 57. I was like, dude, like you got good, better, best, right? USA Swim says a lot, and so we wanted to try and get better at that, and I think she did that, and all things considered with health, that was a big victory for her, is managing herself better through those swims.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just that 50 back final. I mean, she didn't just win. She kind of dominated that. I mean, she won by nearly 2/10 over Reagan, who got silver.
Yeah, she took one less stroke than she was supposed to. Long finish. She was underwater a good bit into that wall, but it was. She kind of came out like a rocket from about like that 15 to 35 mark is where she got a lot of that damage done, which was good.
Yeah. I mean, what's up? What does NC State have that we're missing in the 50 backstroke? You got Justin Ress, world champion. You got Katharine Berkoff, world champion. You got Quentin McCarty, who's never even swum a 50 back, who makes it final at world championships. I mean, what gives?
We like that. I knew Q was going to be pretty good. I was a little nervous for him because this was his first international meet.
Yeah.
I was joking with Greg. I was like, well, luckily it's just one lap, right? Like you can't really, you can't overswim. Like you can overrate or whatever, but like it's not like you're going to overdo it and then have to pay the price on the back end or whatever. But
yeah,
he, the best thing about that where he took a big step already was his attitude was fabulous through camp, through the meet, and not racing till the 11th hour.
Oh right, I forgot.
We had him do 100. We had him do 100 back early on in that meet, and I thought that was good for him, to be honest. Not to mention we were kind of looking to see, do we have anybody healthy?
What do you go?
I think it was 54.0. Yeah, he was close, but not quite where we wanted to go. And it was like we had a few of them do it. It was like a list of them. But I have to hand it to all those guys. They got up and like, all right, I'm ready. I'll do it. I'm game mode. But I think that actually helped Q not get like just too dull by the time we got to the 50. We're still waiting for him to put together the perfect 50 for him. It's either his start is quite off, a little bit off, something, either too high or too low or his finish is long or whatever. But I was really happy with how he performed. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's there was Wolfpack members all over the world, but the ones on Team USA at Worlds specifically seemed like they had good meets. I mean, specifically for Katharine Berkoff, she's coming off this Olympic berth, and then comes has a great trials, comes to this meet, gets sick. I'm just curious what impressed you most about how she handled it, and again, kind of the maturity you alluded to that she has grown into, and as you just said, won a world title and she didn't even swim a perfect race.
Yeah, I think where she's really grown the most is she knows she works hard for it. She knows that she's prepared for it. She knows that she's good enough. It's always just managing, I feel like there's a few races out there that are just there's so many women that are really good and close, right? I mean, even on America's soil, like backstroke, I mean, you got to be on, right?
Half of them train with you.
Someone wins each day. It's a different person in practice each day. But it's funny. There are days where we put them all next to each other, and there are days that we put them so far apart from each other. You're on this side of the pool. You're on this side of the pool. You're doing yards today. It's kind of what I used to hear with Richard Quick when he had like Jenny Thompson and Dara. He would sometimes he'd have to like really separate them. But I think what I was really happy with her, where I feel like she gets a little bit better each time, is managing the expectations of medaling, managing the expectations for USA Swimming, where there is a really high standard for USA Swimming, and she's part of it. And I think when she was younger in her career, it would really freak her out, right? And she would always tell me, like, I need one good cry. Just give me one good cry when it's like getting to me a little bit. I'm nervous, something doesn't feel right, or I'm nervous, like, and her first part of her career, she'd need like 4 good cries, right? And now we're just down to 1. We did have 1, but it was just down to 1. And I think she's learning that just how to manage herself better with high expectations that she has on herself, and from an emotional standpoint. I think was the next that's been a hurdle that she's been able to get up to now.
Yeah, that's good to hear, and it's also like, it's a good reminder, I hope, for people who end up listening to this. It's like, yeah, they're all just humans, they have emotions too, they deal with stress too, and to me, that's a great way to deal with that. Just like, okay, get it all out, I'm good now we can go play.
Yeah, she had a pretty big break after Paris.
Okay,
the biggest one she's had in a long time. And when she came back, we wouldn't go. We went once a day, Monday through Friday. I didn't have her go any Saturdays for a while. And then at one point we dropped the hammer and got to work. But I think that was something that we learned a lot. When Ryan made the Olympics the first time, it was different for him because he kind of got a break, but he came back into a collegiate season where Katharine doesn't have that anymore. So it's your tier pro series meets, and maybe there's this meet that we're going to go to in Toronto. But and I knew going into that she wasn't going to have the college to support her from that, just the whole landscape being different, right? So we were really slow, and it seems like I know a lot of the women that like I know that Lily did or Kate did, and Reagan I think took a pretty big break from what she said, and so I think that really helped her finish well.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, talking to a lot of the athletes who competed in Paris and then who ended up making this Worlds team and had a lot of success at this Worlds, that was a big factor, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like taking a big, long step back after, what was really a really jumbled 5 years pretty much from Tokyo until Paris. I guess 3 years of just craziness.
Right. That's true.
Yeah, but this is awesome to hear about Worlds. Did any thoughts of just the meet's over, we've gotten through that, maybe lessons learned, especially in an experience like that, of just having to manage on the fly or on the go so much? Do you feel like you have palpable or like takeaways that really stand out to you? Because I know every trip like this, I'm sure you learn a ton.
Yeah, I think, one thing that, and I've been asked this, like my neighbors, right, who don't really know much, right? Like they're like, you're in Thailand, and so I think USA Swimming is always trying to figure out, and I know these trips are set up really far in advance, but I know the USA and the steering committee is going to be reviewing what's the best way to approach LA 28 with a training camp, right?
Yeah.
And it's on home soil. Does it have to be as I mean, that was one thing, obviously when we were in Croatia last year, it was just by chance the hottest summer they've ever had, right? So the pool temperature was hot, right? And it made it very difficult. Well, in years prior, it was never like that, right? And that was my first time at Olympic training camp and then at Croatia. So, but I think a lot of it is just how do we maximize, the success of the team through that portion, and I know the steering committee is going to be reviewing a couple of things. I think that's always something. I think one thing that I know that we probably need to explore too, especially with international trips, is how are their bodies being protected beforehand, like probiotics, cycles before we even get going, and so I think those are some lessons that the entire Olympic Committee, not just swimming, probably is going to review and try and okay, what is the absolute best thing for us to do? And so, I mean, those are just, someone might, would you learn it from the meet? And I was like, that even though you can be extremely prepared, sometimes it just don't matter. And you got to be willing or ready to, you got to be able to make decisions really quickly. Mm-hmm. And, it was funny. Like we had a lot of fun as a staff kind of talking about, I wouldn't say it was fun, but it was informative when we would have a staff meeting early at training camp about, okay, here's the relays. For example, like Herbie was like, Patty does really well when he has 100 the morning of. Like I really would like to see him on the prelim relay because it's going to make his finals better. And I was like, okay, well, that's a fast personal morning. I'm not going to really argue that. And this athlete really, really well. Like that, let's put him on in the morning. So we had very good productive talks and trying to plan for, okay, here's the starting scenario. It'll likely manipulate right as the meet goes, but the amount of on the fly, really quick decision making we had to make with relays is something that I don't know how you prepare for it. But there's got to be a way to prepare for it.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that you brought up those points because certainly, again, we're the talking heads, but these are things we're talking about, right? Especially given the chain of events. It's like, okay, what are the ways you can maximize a training camp or, plan ahead? And like you said, the decision to go to Thailand was made months and months in advance. Right. And, but it's things that we're now maybe a little more hyper analytical of because of LA 2028. Right. Because we're like, okay, we got another two years of like prep before this. Do you know, will there be a training camp before Pan Packs?
I think there will be. I don't really know where or how long, but I think that there will be. Because I know they want to always make sure there is a version of a training camp. Just more than anything, isolating the team from the outside world, right? Protecting them a little bit from the outside world, getting them to start thinking it's not about you, it's about USA. Those types of concepts, I think there'll always be training camps, but it's like in certain, like you said, like in certain areas, like I told Greg, like, hey man, Pan Packs is in Irvine. We should just stay at the nicest JW Marriott or whatever's close, right? Because
Irvine,
sometimes those hotels are so nice, and even stay there, right? I mean, like, in LA 28, there's the Olympic experience of it all, right? Being in the Olympic Village,
right? And
that's really important. But there's also the concept of, basketball stays in the offsite, like in Irvine, right. Like in Irvine, what if we stay offsite or whatever? So it's obviously a bunch of different viewpoints here or there, but I do know that with it being at home, it's a pretty big deal, and we need to be ready to go, right? Because these other countries are getting fast. They're getting faster, right? And we see a lot of them all the time. And so we're going to have to up our game a good bit when LA 28 gets here.
No, it's a great point. I mean, we know that the Olympic Village experience is an experience, but it is not optimized for performance. Certainly
It
not
is
for high
tough.
performance. Right. I mean, we know, home Olympics in Paris, Leon stayed in a hotel. He was not staying in the Olympic Village, right? And
Right.
and like that makes sense. If I was Leon and his team, I would do that too.
Well, the amount of times I had a conversation with Jack Alexy, and I'm looking like this. And the Olympic Village, those beds are built for someone who's like
dorms.
5'10".
Yeah.
Like his calf muscles got to be sore because that's right where the bed ends.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to think about moving forward, certainly in that field. I know I've asked you about this a couple of times at this point, but I am super curious just because the coaching staff was so unique. It had this blend of, age and youth. We had Ron Aiken, Herbie Bame, Ray Luz, Anthony Nesty, Eric Posgay from Texas, but then you had, these kind of rookies, Courtney Caldwell, Jim Nickel, the head coach at Bend Swim Club, Noah Yanchulis from Cal. What stood out to you? Again, just kind of looking back, what stood out to you about the staff? And, you were kind of saying it was so fun to have these meetings of just swapping information and hearing and learning a little more about these athletes, but to do it with a group that, half of them have been putting people on the Olympic team for years and years, and half of them, this is their first trip ever.
Yeah, I would say the two things from the veteran coaches. I mean, we compete against, right? NC State competes against Florida and Indiana, right. And Ray and I, for example, are competitors. But then all of a sudden, we had a blast together, and I loved watching Ron, Ray, Anthony be respectful of the younger coaches and their input. And when we do staff meetings, everyone's on the same page or same level, right? Everyone has a voice. The voice is heard. Maybe not everyone agrees with it, but everyone has those moments. And I love watching the veteran coaches let some of the newer coaches say what they want to say, right? And even if it's a message from your main coach back home or whatever, I thought it was fabulous. And then on the flip side, I love how the new coaches got their hands dirty and went to work. And, Courtney had her hands full, right? I mean, there was a lot of her, that crew there, right? Yeah. And Noah, same thing. So I think I really enjoyed watching them. You wouldn't know it was their first trip. You wouldn't know it. Like they jumped in the fire and went to work. And, and I think that was something that, hopefully, younger coaches that listen to this who are eventually going to be on these staffs and is that, and like, there's a reason why you're there, and they did great.
That's super cool to hear. And I think, again, in a post-Olympic year, super cool that there was that opportunity given for some of those younger coaches. And especially in a year where, I think that this was a year where people were trying new things and, some of those head coaches taking time with their family and taking vacation or, just staying with the athletes at home. And it's cool to hear that meshed well and the staff worked out in that way.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. That's Worlds in a nutshell from head coach Braden Holloway. And now we're getting into the college season. I think it's super cool that we were talking off camera and you're like, yeah, we're swimming 4 to 5 times a week, maybe an hour, until Labor Day, we're not doing too much. So in these practices, what's the most fun?
I think just everyone's in a different spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have some people that, like Q's in a good spot, right? He had a small break, but, some people maybe were done July 27th. we have a few from, Lily King was here for summer school and was with us in the summer. So she just showed back up from World Juniors, right? So she's not doing anything. So I think just watching the new people in the current team get to know each other within a setting. Some people will challenge themselves early on something and they're not quite, and then they'll quickly be passed up or something. But I think just watching them interact before they get in, while they're practicing, hearing them joke with each other, because the coaches right now are pretty hands off, and just us observing a little bit. A lot of our, you and I spoke before we started this, is I'll do a little bit more technique once they're in shape. I like just kind of, let's get in, get going a little bit. Because, if you can't really feel the water and then you're trying to do technique, it's different. So it's really a lot of the time the coaches are kind of interacting with them during the practice because, nothing's very hard interval or anything like that. And a lot of our practices, the seniors or juniors will lead and y'all do it. Teach them a little bit of things that they need to know, but have a little fun with them. Mm-hmm. So I just like doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds great. And again, I feel like that's one of the cool parts about just starting a new season and a new year is just getting to have a little fun. And, there's no pressure. It's like, whatever. It's just, hey, let's get back into it, get in shape, and maybe do some fun stuff while we're at it. All right. I put a poll up on our Instagram story asking what we should ask you. So we're going to finish this interview with some rapid fire questions from our Instagram. Let's see what we got. First of all, what would Noe Ponti have gone in yards under your coaching in 100 fly?
Probably 42 flat. He would have been fast.
I think that's one of my most saddest people who didn't swim yards.
He did one before he went back home.
Yeah.
He did one like early season. They'll call each other out. Okay. So they'll challenge one another, and it's really the freshmen will challenge an upperclassman. I challenge you in a 50 breaststroke, and I think he challenged somebody in the 100 fly. He was, I don't know, I think he was like 46.
Okay.
And this was like post Olympics, right? And we watched it, and it was like he was one of those guys where you show up and it was like, oh my God, he's got it. Like like the other one, and I like two that like Andreas Vizayas was the other one. When he showed up, we were like, whoo, he can swim any stroke he wants. But yeah, 42 flat, maybe 41.99. Call it that. That looks better.
Yes, that's what we want to hear. Sad that Noe didn't end up swimming yards. Totally understand why. He's just coming off an Olympic medal. He's doing great training at home. He's had an awesome long course. He's famous. Why wouldn't you? But dang, it would have been fun.
Would have been
cool. Do you have a favorite fins, paddles, or fins and paddles set?
I think the two things that I really like with fins and paddles is either doing like some pretty powerful, very low stroke count focus work, or just going fast and building up to build. I mean, I do like doing a lot of long course builds where you're just finding your stroke and then you're starting to add rate to it. Our long course pool, when you go long course, there's those short course lanes, there's 18 lanes. Okay. So we're always doing like 6 line builds, as we call it. So it's like 6 lines. We call it 6 lines be big, right? And then 6 lines powerful, and then 6 lines go. And it's pretty fun to just watch just the easy build up of their speed. I like doing stuff like that.
Yeah. I can picture just like the rhythm of that build, and it sounds very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
This is just a pretty regular question. What are you most excited for about this NCAA season? I'm going to phrase this as what meet do you have circled on your calendar for NC State? Not ACCs or NCAAs.
Not one of those.
Not one of those. But what meet are you most excited for this in your dual meet lineup or your college lineup?
I this whole October thing that we're doing, there's like 8 teams. You can bring everybody, but you're only allowed to compete 16. I don't know exactly the format. I just know we wanted to go to Atlanta, and those guys came up with a great idea, and so do you get 3 meets out of it?
Yeah,
I think it's different. It's fun. We drew events out of a hat, or there was 5 different formats, I think because I think I like it because there's 8 teams going.
Yeah.
So you don't really know who you're going to compete against the second meet. I think we know our first meet, but you don't really know who you have the second meet.
Right. Yeah. So it's a surprise.
So you'll have to strategize after meet 1, on the fly, like we did at Worlds every single day.
Yeah. So you're already ready for this.
I'm ready.
No, I'm very excited to see how the Georgia Tech hosted dual meet tournament goes. And again, like you said, it's at Georgia Tech. That's where NCAAs are going to be. Is that where ACCs are? Or are they still in Greensboro?
Yep.
Okay, so ACCs are back at Georgia Tech this year as well. So yeah, a lot of time in Atlanta for you this year.
Yeah. I know where all the Taco Bells are located.
All right. Speaking of specific food, what superstitions do you have on race day as a swimmer or now as a coach?
I don't think I really had one as a swimmer.
Okay.
Or if I did, I don't remember. I think as a coach, I think it changes. I used to when we did well and I would eat a lunch or something, I would keep eating the same thing until something didn't go right. Then I would totally switch to a different food. Like I went through a kick where I had a lot of sushi before the meet. I would, even if we were leaving at 10 a.m. in the morning on the bus, I would go to the grocery store and grab one of those little packages of sushi on the bus.
That's gross.
I don't have too many superstitions, to be honest.
Yeah. Nah, yeah. I mean, I don't either, but some people do.
Yeah.
That we talked about this before, and I think this is funny, but this isn't even a question. NC State is a great school, but gets a little overshadowed by Duke and UNC, which I know is kind of the case outside of swimming, but I'm so enmeshed in my own little swim sphere that I read that and I was like, no, they don't. NC State's like the best school and the best swimming program in North Carolina for the last decade. But I think it's kind of cool that, you've been at NC State for 15 years. Okay. Yeah. You got there in 2010 and you have built NC State swimming into one of the premier programs in the country. How did you get over that hump of, I mean, this is obviously very subjective, but I think if you're looking at swimming success in the last 10 years, NC State is above UNC and Duke. And I think in North Carolina, that's a hard hurdle to jump over for any program.
Well, the cool thing now that I like is Duke and UNC are good, right? And so it makes the meets fun and challenging. Brian over at Duke's done a great job getting Duke rolling, and obviously Mark has brought UNC back up, and I think it's a lot of fun because it's so close to the area. Each school kind of is like known for something, right? I mean, you think about pre-med or pre-law or business, or we're more of a STEM school, and the funny thing is all the schools look really different, when you travel to them. So I think the Triangle is such a great area. Obviously, for every sport, it's different. Like, I mean, when basketball comes up, right? It's always those two, and we're kind of like the one who's like in the back. But now we have a new coach, so hopefully he's like, So in football it's different, right? And and then Duke kind of built up their football, so it's a pretty cool area to be around because I mean, in my neighborhood, 2 members of my neighborhood swam at UNC, and so it's kind of neat. One of them was Claire Kazan's high school coach. He lives like 50 yards. Okay. I can hit his house with a golf ball if I swing that. But it's kind of neat. And then there used to be a former Duke swimmer who lived in our neighborhood too. She just moved out maybe a couple of years ago. But just in our neighborhood, that was triangle swim families,
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes it more fun.
No kidding. Yeah, no, that's super cool that, I mean, it's crazy if you don't know, and if you're listening, it's like 20 miles, the 20-mile radius for all 3 or something. I don't know. It's super
pretty close.
For NC State, UNC, Chapel Hill, and Duke. So
it was really helpful when COVID hit because that was the only meets we could do.
Yeah, no kidding.
Budget saver.
Right there. Yeah. And you're 45 minutes away from Greensboro, which is
more like an hour.
Okay, an hour, which is everyone's favorite destination for swimming.
I love it.
I could never go to Greensboro again, and I'd be okay. But I've come around. I think I used to hate Greensboro, and now I'm like, it's okay.
It's not. They take a lot of pride in hosting, and they do a good job hosting.
Yeah, I went to ACCs this year, and I was like, okay, Greensboro. I'm down. It's fine.
You got to go to Hop's Burger Bar.
Hops, you're not the first person to tell me that. I don't think I've been there, but everyone's like, Hops, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Well, Braden, thank you so much for taking the time as always. It's been an awesome chat. And all right, good luck with getting started on the season.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Coleman.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.